The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the participants and do not reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
BronxNet. Your voice, your views, your vision.
Hello, I'm your host Sylvia Anglin, filling in for Darren Jaime, and of course you're watching the one and only interactive talk show, bringing the best of the Bronx and the world right to you. First up in our legal corner, an inside look at the Fair Labor Standards Act, and one organization is using a leap in technology to break the silence that has been held responsible for spreading sexual street harassment. And also, one online radio station is putting together an event to help save the life of one of its own. And finally, we'll hear the tale of one Bronxite who went from the mean streets of the Bronx to the control room at CBS. So stay tuned. All this and much more is headed your way because we are now officially open. Hello Bronxites, I'm your host Sylvia Anglin, and today is Wednesday, March 28th, and you're watching Open, the only live interactive talk show program that brings the Bronx and New York straight to your TV set. Feel free to give us a call at 718-960-7241 or send us an email at open@bronxnet.org. We also want to let you know you can hit us up on Facebook by searching under Open BronxNet Television, or Twitter by following our page at BronxNet TV, or watch us live right now on our website at bronxnet.org. There are many questions workers ask themselves. Am I getting equal pay for equal work, or are my employers paying me the amount I should be receiving for the work that's asked of me? Here to answer these questions and discuss the Fair Labor Standards Act is legal correspondent and attorney David Lesh.
Hi.
Welcome, David.
Nice to be back.
Great to have you.
Well, listen, we're going to end the employment discrimination series. This is the eighth in the eight-part series. And we're going to end it with the Fair Labor Standards Act. It's a very important act. It was enacted in 1938. It gives workers certain rights with respect to pay, the minimum amount that they are going to be paid, hourly rate, the maximum amount of hours that they're forced to work, whether or not they're going to get overtime, and record keeping. It's a very, very important act. It was enacted again in 1938 in response to the workers in our country in the early 1900s were forced to really carry the load of business and not reap the financial benefits. And you can go all the way back to the English novels of the 1800s, the sweatshops that the young children had to work in. So this act was directly related to those injustices that were going on, both in England and in the United States. And we also see, presently that some of our U.S. corporations, and Nike went to Southeast Asia and had some problems over there, apparently exploiting workers over there, overseas. So this is alive and well. There's always going to be a pull, Sylvia, between employers who want to maximize profits and keep down the payroll and increase the hours of their employees versus the employee who's just looking to make a decent salary, a decent amount of money so they can support their families. And this is always going to go back and forth.
I have a question. Is there a scale model that employers should pretty much use to compensate their employees?
Well, there's a minimum wage. Congress always has a minimum wage that's been enacted, and whether or not they're going to increase or decrease it there's always going to be a debate. But what's more important in terms of this act is that the employers usually do very subtle things to avoid complying, and I'll give you an example. Right?
Okay.
Here's an example: Caribou Coffee. Right? They serve coffee throughout the nation, and usually the person who serves the coffee, they're called baristas, I believe. Normally they would be getting an hourly rate, but instead what Caribou Coffee did is that they made each one of these baristas store managers, and therefore avoided the hourly rate, making them salaried employees. Therefore, they could force them to work 40 or 50 hours and make sure that they're in compliance with this Fair Labor Standards Act. Of course, they said, no, you can't do this. And what ended up happening is they ended up having to pay all this money back. Let me give you another example, Tyson Chicken. Right?
Okay.
All right, Tyson Chicken, you know, they make all the chicken for the supermarkets and different retail and different stores where you can buy the foods. Well, if you work for Tyson Chicken, when you get to the factory, you have to put on the goggles, you have to put on your, the uniform, you have to wash, put on the hair nets. This takes a certain amount of time, and then when you're finished, you have to take all these things off. Well, Tyson Chicken wasn't paying their employees for the half an hour to an hour that it took to do this every morning, and they saved millions of dollars. Well, there was a collective class action that was brought, and the court found that this was imperative to their business, sanitizing their hands, the hair nets, all these things. So if you're going to make your employees do this, which you should, because it's good for your business, you're going to pay them for it. So let's say BronxNet or somebody else made you come in early and set up, but your show doesn't go on till, 10 o'clock or when it goes on. Yet they've had you here for an hour, setting up the studio, putting the cameras, getting everything ready. But they start getting you paid at 10 o'clock. Well, they can't do that. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. Now here's the difference. BronxNet would be excluded because BronxNet's a not-for-profit. So there are certain exclusions under this particular act. Another exclusion are family businesses. My law firm would be excluded. I can't yell that that I'm not getting overtime from my brother or from my father. So that would be excluded. All right. The company has to also make $500,000 as an annual budget. So that would come under the act. Now remember, if they don't come under this act, it doesn't mean you can't bring actions against the company in other forms where I've been discussing over the last 8 weeks, whether it's the Disabilities Act or the Pregnancy Discrimination Act. There are so many different acts you may be able to get under.
So how do you know if the job that you're in right now, you feel that you're being exploited, or you feel that you're working, your work doesn't equal your pay? Is it more of a personal, do you have to eliminate the personal from the actual statutes of the Standards Act? How does one go
about it? Well, when you take a look at it, you say, well, am I working overtime? Am I getting the 1.5 times pay that I'm supposed to be getting? My employer told me to be on call. BronxNet wanted me, or whoever it is, can be BronxNet, but somebody else wanted me on call for the weekend to be right near a phone or to be right near the store just in case they need me. Well, I spent 48 hours worrying about the store. I didn't enjoy my weekend. I was on call. You should get paid for that. That's considered to be overtime. Are they exploiting you? Are they having you come in and open up the shop and not paying you for that time? That's how you know. It's a 40-hour work week. If it's more than that, the statute says you got to get time and a half. All right? Are you getting meal breaks, bathroom breaks? Are you getting these things? With respect to this act, it's mandatory. And the employers can't say, by the way, this is very important, well, we didn't know that they weren't getting paid for what was going on in the morning or after work. We didn't know. Well, your supervisor knew or should have known. And if the supervisor knew or should have known, then you should have known, and you're going to pay. Now, let's talk about how you bring an action. Okay. It's usually a collective class action that's brought. The courts don't generally like one person at a time from a big company coming in and bringing an action, whether it's Walmart or wherever they are. So it has to be certified a class action. But if you can show that all the plaintiffs have the same common complaint, that they're being exploited in the same way, it becomes a big class action. It's certified. It's usually in federal court, and you can negotiate terms and monies. Now, what are you going to get? What are your damages? It's 2 years' pay. You can only go back 2 years unless it's willful and reckless. In other words, the employers really knew they were exploiting you. You'll get 3 years. Now, it's not just that. A lot of times they double it, and they give what's called liquidated damages. So it's almost twice the amount that you would have made. Now, they don't call it punitive damages. They don't call it punishment, but that's really what it is.
So it's kind of like retroactive.
Retroactive. And so it's 2 years if it's just negligent, not realizing that you're exploiting them. 3 years if it's willful and you know you're doing this to your employees, and then you double it. and you can get liquidated damages as well. So it's a very strong statute, the Fair Labor Standards Act. A lot of people don't know they have the rights under this act because they think, well, I like my employer, and so what? So he makes me work, or she makes me work on the weekends and doesn't give me overtime, or has me by the phone. I mean, no, you can't do that. Or they have me come in early and warm up the pizza ovens, before we start selling pizza, and it takes about a half an hour to do that. Well, you have to get paid for that. And it's mandatory under this act that the employer keeps the records for at least 3 years after you leave. 3 years. So if you go back and you bring this action and the employer says, to the court, I don't have those records anymore, well, that's a presumption against you. It's a presumption that you should have kept those records, and if you didn't keep these records, there's a presumption that the employee is correct, that you really did not pay the employee for the time that they spent, and we're going to punish you for that, and we're going to force you to pay compensatory damages, liquidation damages, and double it. So, we take these things very seriously, and employers are always going to pull to try and maximize the amount they can squeeze out of an employee. That's what employers do. I mean, that's the nature of capitalism. But at the same time, we don't go for the sweatshops. That the statute also deals with child labor, but I think we understand that children are not supposed to be exploited and used in manufacturing plants. I mean, we're long past that. The main part of the statute is minimum wage. You got to make sure you're paid minimum wage. Maximum hours, it's a 40-hour work week. If you pass the 40 hours, you get time and a half. And lastly is the record keeping. You better make sure your employer is keeping adequate records for you. Oh, the employer should make sure they're doing it, because if they don't, you can bet that in the end, the employer is going to have to pay a lot of money if they come under this act.
Thank you, David.
It's my pleasure.
I learned a lot with this Fair Work Standards Act.
I'll see you in a couple of weeks. I'm going to take off next week because I have my own show next week. But then in 2 weeks, I'll be back with a whole new series. But I'll keep you guessing what it's going to be.
I can't wait.
There you go.
Up next, after the break, we find out how cell phones are helping put an end to street harassment.
Underneath everything we are, underneath everything we do, we are all people, connected, interdependent, united. And when we reach out a hand to one, we can influence the condition of all. That's what it means to live united.
7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
And safety. You have a right to education. You have a right to your own things. You have the right to social security. You have the right to play. You have the right to democracy. You have the right to asylum. You have the right to take responsibility. And no one and nobody can take these rights and freedoms away from you.
Why are you doing this?
You have a right to know.
Hello viewers, remember this is a live and interactive talk show. So join in on the conversation by calling 718-960-7241 or send us an email at open@bronxnet.org. About 1 year ago, we had the pleasure of learning about a courageous mission of Holler Back, an organization dedicated to ending street harassment around and throughout the world by using mobile technology. And recently, they have launched a new campaign, I've Got Your Back, that provides real-time relief to the victims of harassment. It will allow for witnesses to ask the victim if they are okay and ask that what they can do to help, as well as clicking a I've Got Your Back button on stories published on the Holler Back website. But here to tell us more about Holler Back's progress and the I've Got Your Back campaign is the New York City chapter president, Kalima Boang. Welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Hi. So it's been a year since you guys have been running this Holler Back campaign.
Yes.
Let's take a step back 1 year. What is Holler Back?
Well, Holler Back is a street harassment movement that is based online. We use mobile technology such as the iPhone and Android apps to try and bring awareness to different communities, urban communities, about ending street harassment, to bring a conversation to youth and young women and men about the implications about street harassment and how we can all fight it. So it's an international based movement.
So what is street sexual harassment? A lot of times it can mean different things to different people. Obviously, everyone's tolerance level is a little different. But what is street sexual harassment?
Well, Holler Back defines street harassment as any harassment that a woman or man or whoever experiences on the street. It's one of the most pervasive situations of harassment. So if someone comes up to you and says, "Hey baby," or any other way that people are harassing you on the street, it's the least legislated against type of harassment. It's different from sexual harassment, but it is very multiple types of harassment. And it happens every day. It happens with a lot of young women and a lot of gay community members as well.
So if someone is harassed, generally what should they do? Should they snap a picture of their harasser, or should they be like, "Listen, I've told you once, please leave me alone," unwarranted attention, or do they just immediately take out their iPhone, Android phone and snap a picture?
Well, we at Holler Back, we always say if you're not comfortable taking a picture, please don't, because it's a situation where you have to gauge and figure out what's your comfort level. But we do encourage, if you want to share your story or take a picture, that's why we have our online movement as well, with the internet-based access of trying to put videos and photos of the harasser. But we do encourage people to share their stories. That's why we launched the I've Got Your Back campaign, where we have people if you're a pedestrian and you see someone being harassed, how do you interject and intervene and try and help that person? So it's a very much based movement to try and get a conversation between people that's outside of being harassed and victims of harassment.
So if you're not the person being harassed, but you're a pedestrian walking by and seeing a young lady or a young man or whomever being harassed, what should you do?
You should definitely speak to Holler Back. We're here to talk and share stories. We want to hear your story and want to hear what your experience was, but we would definitely say that we're bringing more workshops and educational tools to pedestrians if they're in a situation they see someone being harassed, what to do. It's best to try and intervene and ask that person, "Are you okay? Is there something that we can help with?" But definitely direct Holler Back and try and figure out a way that we can help.
So piggybacking on the Holler Back phenomena,
Yes.
we have the I've Got Your Back campaign. Tell me more about that.
Well, we just launched the I've Got Your Back campaign last Thursday. We were in Brooklyn, New York, so we raised money and we did a lot of awareness and fundraising about the campaign and how GreenDot.org is helping partner with Holler Back to bring awareness and try and figure out ways that pedestrians can intervene. So with psychology analysis research, we've also been combining the effect of the bystander effect and how the importance of a pedestrian to intervene when someone's being assaulted or harassed, how we can help. We've been partnering with the MTA Transit as well to say if you see something, be sure that you can help and bring awareness to it.
So it's important that as pedestrians, or, you know, New York City, we're our
Yes.
fellow neighbor, that we look out for each other.
Yes.
What do you recommend people do to get involved in this campaign?
Well, definitely contact and share your stories on the nyc.ihollaback.org website. We're always checking our blogs. We're always making sure that we communicate with each other. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. Our main site is nyc.hollaback. So if you have a comment or a story or want to communicate with me, you can email us, you can contact us, and definitely share your story. And that's how movements start, by sharing stories.
So as far as taking pictures of the person doing the harassing,
Yes.
I know that's a little touch and go a very touchy area, because obviously if you post the picture to your website, how does that work out? Like,
Well, the person who is being harassed, you can post the picture of the harasser on the website. We say your comfort level is always something that you should definitely gauge, but it's open and you can do it, and that's what our platform is, sharing your story. So by any means necessary, if it's taking a picture, if it's helping someone who's being harassed, it is within our right to do so.
so what if the person doing the harassing's like, I was just telling her she looked pretty today. That was my way of saying it.
No.
And they're like, I don't want to be on this website as someone who's harassing someone on the street. Like, I mean, there's the flip side to the coin.
Well, we've never gotten any submissions from repliers of harassers stating that I'm on the website and I want my photo down. We haven't gotten any of that.
Okay.
But it is very much in your right, if you feel that you're being assaulted, that you have the right to post someone's picture, and we are firmly believers of that right.
Because I've noticed over the past year, especially with more use of iPhones, Androids,
Yes.
what have you, smartphone technology, that people have been, incidents happen on the subway or incidents happen in the street, and they're immediately able to get a picture of the assailant or the person doing the harassing, so that NYPD and the proper law enforcement authorities can follow up on it. Where do you see this technology going, and where do you see this technology taking us?
Well, definitely, because Hollaback started in 2005 and we are a base movement based off of technology. We're actually expanding to different countries internationally. We cover 9 languages, so we're an international movement now. But our platform is definitely technology based, but we're going from actual educational curriculum, trying to get into schools, campaigns to campaign like I've Got Your Back. We're doing workshops. We're partnering with organizations from this is the first step, is the technology-based movement, but we're definitely getting the educational tools to expand.
So what countries are you operating in besides the United States?
It's so much. We're in Holland, Denmark. It's international, so it's definitely on our website if you want more information, but we're based in various countries and cities.
And do you see central themes from country to country? Do you see central themes from city to city? What is the central theme of the people posting to the website and engaging with Hollaback?
The central theme is that they want to share their stories and say that this is what happened to me and I hope that I can help someone else. That's pretty much what we always advocate for. If you tell your story, most likely there's someone else that experienced it as well. So along all fields and internationally, we've always had advocates that speak about their stories and actually want to share them to say that I want to help someone else.
So the I've Got Your Back campaign, are there going to be any meet or greets? Are there going to be any events that are coming up where people at home can possibly attend or join in on the movement?
Yes, we definitely have our events page on our website where we have a list of upcoming events around the city. As a New York City chapter president, I'll be there communicating with community organizers and volunteers, and we're actually recruiting for more volunteers and trying to get more awareness in different areas for in your city. What's going on in your city, is anyone being street harassed there. So
what would a volunteer pretty much do within the Hollaback organization?
Well, a Hollaback volunteer would be someone that would help us with our blog, which would be event coordinator. We're actually looking for coordinators to do partnerships with different organizations. So we have a slew of different jobs that we need help with, but we're definitely very eager to get everyone out there to joining the movement.
Thank you. We wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.
People can log on to I've Got Your Back, the new campaign at hollaback.com or
nyc.ihollaback.org.
Perfect.
Yes, thank you so much.
Halima.
Thanks.
And up next, there's more from right here at Open.
Coming home can be hard if you're a veteran of Iraq or Afghanistan. You may feel like you're all alone. But you're not alone. At IAVA.org, your fellow vets are all around you. Join our free online community, get the resources you need, and connect to other vets who know where you're coming from. IAVA.org. We've got your back.
G-Morning, sunshine. Wakey, wakey. Text me. Are your parents home later? We can hang. LUV, love you. JK. Holla back. Holla back. Holla back. Are you with your friends? That's lame. We're in a huge fight right now. XO. What'd you dream about? Something I did. Are you on your way to the mall? Lonely. Nude pics. Send me some. Text me.
When it's time for lunch, a sandwich is a quick and easy choice. And with the right ingredients, it can be good and good for you. So I'm here today to see who can build the ultimate sandwich. All right, when the time is up, our judges will give you their scores. Ready, set, go! Okay, Jason starts out with a multi-grain roll. Ooh, Allison's stuffing her pita with, yes, spinach, a great source of iron. Jason isn't skipping on the protein, adding plenty of smoked turkey, just like Allison's putting the finishing touches with crispy red bell peppers for a dose of vitamin A. Time! It looks like we have a tie. We'll need to call in our special guest referee.
Now these are what I call quick, delicious lunches. Whole grain breads, a whole variety of ingredients. There are so many different ways to build delicious, healthy sandwiches. These two get high marks in every category. I'd say you're both winners. America.
Let's get healthy together.
And welcome back to Open. About 2 years ago, Izzy Escalene and the team at Nightline Radio learned that one of their associates was diagnosed with oral cancer and diabetes. Over those 2 years, DJ Solo Remix struggled with his jobs, insurance, and has since lost his health benefits. Nightline Radio has adopted him into their family and are putting together a 24-house Armageddon fundraiser on Saturday, March 30th to help raise funds for the surgery for DJ Solo is scheduled to have in a few weeks. Here to tell us more is CEO of Nightline Radio, Izzy Escalene, and Senor
and Yvonne.
Escalene. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Actually, it's a 24-hour Housemageddon.
Housemageddon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, can you take me back to DJ Solo? So he's suffering cancer and diabetes and has since lost his health insurance. Can you take us through his process, his journey, and how are we here today?
Wow. Solo came to us 2 years ago. He actually is part of Nightline Radio and Team DJs with Izzy Rock. He has cancer. We found out 2 years ago that he was diagnosed with cancer, and he was working at the time, and with time he lost his job. His insurance kicked in but only covered for so much, and I guess the whole nurturing thing where him and I are so close, he lost his job, doesn't have insurance, doesn't have family, so Nightline stepped in.
So you're putting together this fundraiser for DJ Solo.
For him.
It's a 24-hour house Armageddon. Because that's what I was looking at. I was like 24
hours. You can go into that and
Yeah, so basically what it is he has a very strong passion for house music and dance music. I myself also being a producer. So I gathered all the Bronx DJs because we're so united, and I'm calling for unity from all the DJs in the Bronx, tri-state area, to come in and support. They can come in and do a 1-hour set. The Nightline ladies will be providing food. So we're going to have like 3 waves of food. We're going to have food in the afternoon, food in the evening, and we're going to have a breakfast platter in the morning on Sunday. So I have DJs coming from Brooklyn. I got DJs coming from Jersey. I got DJs coming from Queens, Staten Island, you name it. We've got about a 25 DJ lineup, and these are all DJs that are very passionate about the music and passionate about radio. And I took Solo under my wing. He's been the best partner I've ever had. When I learned about the issues that he was having, I said, oh my God, like it really struck home. So he is part of the family, and we're here to support.
So where's DJ Solo right now?
Solo, he's at a doctor's appointment today.
He's actually at a doctor's appointment. So he's still struggling with this. When is his surgery scheduled to happen?
It's tentatively scheduled for April, I believe. Yeah.
And the fundraiser, how much dollars are you looking to raise for
We're
this?
asking for a minimum donation of $20. We've already raised up to $300 just online with the donation button that we have on our website. I expect to raise enough to get him going for 3 months that he's going to be out of commission totally. I mean, we have DJ gigs that we do, and a lot of the DJ gigs that I was getting, I was actually pushing to him, and I was bringing them in to my DJ gigs, and that's how we made money, So.
Okay, so he's pretty much going to be out of commission for about 3 months. And this is pretty much to help him along with his bills and what have you. As far as people donating at home, you mentioned clicking on a donate button on your website.
So they can go right to nightlineradio.com, NITELINE radio.com. There is a donation link that's available. You can donate right through there. It goes right to a PayPal account, and then we're able to set the funds aside for him.
Or they can come to
the studio. Yeah, if they donate at the studio, we're going to provide them with food, beverage, a tour of the studio, and a great networking environment there.
And where's the studio located?
We're at 3425 East Tremont Avenue, right off Bruckman Boulevard. We're in the Thrives area of the Bronx.
So they can just pretty much stop in Saturday. If they can't make it Saturday, they can stop
Sunday
in
morning.
Sunday morning. We'll be there. We'll be there all night.
But I'm sure you'll take donations if people want to stop in any time to take donations.
Definitely.
They can just stop in.
We have here
and
till
ask
April 9th.
Yeah.
And even
Absolutely.
after April 9th.
We also have custom-made shirts made.
We can't say that online.
I can bleep it out. It says "Kicking Cancers." Beep. So the shirts are $25. All proceeds are going right to that fund.
Yeah.
Right.
So DJ Solo, when will he be DJing this Saturday? Will he be a part of the fundraising effort?
He will be there. He'll start it off at 12 noon.
Okay.
He'll DJ for 2 hours. Then we have DJs tentatively scheduled throughout the whole day, and he'll be there kind of being more of a host, and then I'll have, he'll be hosting and talking on the mic as well.
And hopefully he'll be good for our Relay for Life. We have a cancer event coming up June 2nd at Evander Charles High School, and we are walking for him, Team Solo Remix, and hopefully he'll be up and about to walk that day. That's June 3rd.
Right. That's
actually June
2nd at Evander Charles.
Yep.
Yeah.
Most Bronxites, as a Bronxite myself, I love house music. Love house music. So
you're welcome to stop by.
Welcome to stop by. You're welcome to stop
24
by.
hours of house. What DJs are coming? Are there any big names on the DJ circuit that will be attending?
Give the names.
Right now, I also work for La Mega 97.9 FM, and I have my own radio station. I'm part of the DJ Kings, which is one of the top New York City companies in the tri-state area. So it's got me. You got DJ Eddie Cruz from Queens. He's a very big name. I got DJ Tanko. I got DJ SOS Surge. I got DJ Mad, DJ David S. These are all guys that are on radio right now. So
if people are at home, they want to listen to the broadcast, they just log on to Nightline Radio.
You can log on to Nightline Radio. If you have an iPhone, smartphone, you can download our exclusive iPhone app that we have, Nightline IR. It's available for free. Or you can download TuneIn Radio. We're also on iTunes Radio in the top 40 section.
Oh, nice.
So we're pretty much global. We got it covered.
And as far as donations, if people want to send something via PayPal, they have to just log on to donate to.
They log on
and there's
right
something
through the
up
website.
there for DJ Solo Remix,
Absolutely.
right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So we look forward to the success of your event and to hopefully the fast recovery of DJ Solo Remix.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. And up next, he went from living in the projects to becoming an award-winning producer. He tells his story next. But first, there's this.
Low-fat cheese sandwiches on whole wheat bread. Chewy and good for you. Snacks high in calcium help build strong bones, and foods rich in fiber are good for your heart. So you have the power to dominate. Can your food do that? Run, throw, think, eat better. Find out more at smallstep.gov.
How you doing? I just want regular, no sugar today.
You got it.
Thanks. Hello.
Hi.
Did you eat that whole thing today?
Yeah.
Yes. Hi.
How you doing?
She's getting big, huh?
Big. Yeah, she is big. Hey, haircut.
Yeah.
Looks cute. Now let's go. Nice to see you. Thanks a lot.
If only child abuse were this easy to recognize. If you even suspect abuse, call 1-800-4-A-CHILD. All calls are anonymous and confidential. Trust your instincts.
In his memoir, Leaving Story Avenue, Paul LaRosa tells of his time growing up in a Bronx housing project where he eventually made his way to being a reporter for the New York Daily News, and during that time he was front and center during one of the stressful times in New York's history, the terror reign of the Son of Sam, the blackout, and John Lennon's murder, and the city's bankruptcy scare. Now he is an Emmy award-winning producer for CBS's 48 Hours, and we are pleased to have Paul here to tell us more of his tales so we can look forward to reading his book. Welcome to the show, Paul.
Thanks, Sylvia. Thanks for having me.
So we were discussing where you grew up, Story Avenue and
the Monroe Projects, or the Monroe Houses, they call them. And it's, along Story Avenue. And way back when, in the 60s, Story Avenue was actually a dirt road when I moved there. And it's funny because that area of the Bronx had really not been developed since it had been farmland way back when. So the projects, were put up there, the houses, and all around there were empty lots where we played all the time. And in those lots, people have a hard time believing this now, but in those lots in the Bronx were wild pheasants and wild rabbits. And we're talking like the mid-60s here. It wasn't like 1930. It was the mid-60s. And my friends and I used to, we had the idea of buying bow and arrows at the Bows and Arrow from the EJ Corvettes that was up there, and we would actually hunt pheasant and rabbit in the Bronx when we were teenagers, young teenagers. And I never hit anything. But these stories do really exist, and it did really happen.
People don't understand how the Bronx, the changing faces of the Bronx, how the Bronx has gone through so many changes depending on the area, just the landscape, the topography of the area. Can you tell me what was it like growing up in this section, aside from hunting wild pheasants and never catching a rabbit?
Yeah. Well, it was, when I moved into the Monroe houses, it was really idyllic. It was the early 60s, and they had just opened, and everybody moved in at the same time, so nobody had previous friends. We all just made friends with each other right then and there, and there was a diverse group of people. You know, there were Hispanics and blacks and whites and Jews, and you know, everybody was there then. And we all played together, and it was great. I mean, we made up a lot of games like Off the Barrel. We played, you know, softball, basketball. It was a non-stop play adventure. I mean, you know, we weren't going to school. We just would come down to sit on the benches that were down there, and we just choose up sides and play games all the time. It was a great time to grow up there. But, you know, the projects changed as I lived there. They went through a transition. And in the late 60s and into the 70s, I lived there until 77, 78, you know, drugs and gangs took over, and they became very dangerous. It became like the complete opposite of what it was at the beginning.
So can you take me from your journey from Story Avenue to becoming a reporter at the Daily News?
Right, that was pretty wild and pretty lucky. I went to Cardinal Hayes, by the way, on the Grand Concourse. I grew up in the Bronx, went to Cardinal Hayes, went to Fordham University, which isn't too far from here. And then my last year at Fordham, I got a job at WPIX TV, which I knew at the time was owned by the same company that owned the Daily News. It was in the same building, the famous news building on East 42nd Street. And I always knew I wanted to be a reporter and a writer. But, you know, making that jump is another story. So I was eventually hired as a copy boy at the Daily News. And you know, copy boys in those days, you know, we'd do all the grunt work. We'd go get coffee, we'd, you know, people would actually, reporters would type a story and yell out copy, and we'd run over and grab the piece of paper and take it somewhere else. And, you know, there were typewriters. I mean, these were, what was interesting in those, before 1980, the news was still using manual typewriters. Everything was done with hot type. It was almost like newspapers had been produced 100 years before. Nothing really had changed. And it was a completely wild atmosphere. I mean, people drank at their desks all the time. People would hang out at the bar behind the building. People would smoke constantly. There were very few women. People would curse at the top of their lungs, you know, in the newsroom all the time. It was very non-PC. It's almost like, it's almost hard to believe that environment existed, and which is part of the reason I wanted to write this book. You know, when I get together with the guys I grew up with, you know, or worked with back then, we tell all these great, crazy stories of what it was like. But somebody always would say, we should write them down. And so finally I wrote them down. And it's a little like looking back at Mad Men, the TV show. It's hard to believe this period of time existed, but it did exist. And I'm here to tell you that it did, you know.
So can you tell me, what was it like, as a journalist myself, working on big stories like the Son of Sam murders?
Well, it was fascinating, because when I worked at the news back then, there was a famous columnist named Jimmy Breslin. He's still around, but in those days, news tabloid columnists were like, you know, the bee's knees. I mean, they were like big guys. They were like Top Guns. They were sort of like anchors are now. And Breslin was a real character. And during the Son of Sam reign, the Son of Sam would write to Jimmy Breslin. And we'd get these letters, and he'd answer them in the newspaper, and we'd run the letters that Son of Sam wrote to Jimmy in the newspaper. So it was a wild time, and part of my job back then was to open up the viewer mail. So I was always looking for another Son of Sam letter, and we occasionally would find one. And it was a crazy time, and people were afraid because he was shooting lovers in cars, you know, people who would be kissing in cars. That's what he would be doing. And very close to where, you know, one night I was out in Bayside, Queens. I came in the next day, and it turned out he had shot a couple like a few blocks from where I had been out. So everybody was very scared back then, and he was finally caught by a parking ticket.
Wow. And Jim Breslin, the person who used to receive the letters, where is he now?
Well, Jimmy is still alive. He still works for the Daily News. He writes once a week on Sundays, but now he's in his 80s. I mean, he's not the Jimmy Breslin he was when he was in his 50s, but he's still around. I just don't think that newspaper or tabloid columnists are as important today as they were back then. And you can imagine, as a kid coming from the projects, you know, I was clueless as far as like what I was getting into when I walked into the Daily News city room. I mean, it was just a crazy, wild atmosphere, and I was like, oh my God, where am I? It's like Alice in Wonderland, you know. It was really quite an experience.
So you took your life story up until this point, and you put it in a book.
Right. Well, it doesn't actually even go up until now. It ends in like 1985. But I thought, I thought because of the stories that the news stories, and also my recollections of growing up in Monroe houses, the projects before they were bad, and in this transitional period when they went from good to bad. People now think of the projects as a bad place to live, I think generally, but they weren't always like that, and they don't have to be like that, and that's my message in a way. And I just think people shouldn't forget these stories and my life actually has been a series of telling stories all along, so it's kind of interesting that I grew up on Story Avenue. It's the poetic justice of the whole thing, you know.
So in the book, what other stories or interesting stories will readers be treated to without telling too much, because obviously we want them to read the book?
Well, I could tell a lot of stories about growing up Catholic in that period of time, which was kind of wild. One of my favorite stories is how we had strict Catholic nuns, Blessed Sacrament School back then, and one day we were raising money for charity, and one way to raise money for charity, everybody would bring in something and we'd all bid on it in an auction, and one guy brought in an album cover of Nancy Sinatra, These Boots Are Made for Walking. And it sounds silly now, but back then I really wanted that album because she looked so great and so sexy on the album cover. Mm-hmm. And so I bid like crazy to try to win this, album for myself. And I did. It cost $3 or whatever it cost. And as I was walking up the aisle to reclaim my prize, this album cover with sexy Nancy on it, the nun that I had whipped the LP out of the cover, tore up the cover, which is what I really wanted, and said, "This doesn't belong in a Catholic home," and threw the album cover in the garbage and handed me the LP, the black disc. And I was crushed. I was crushed,
That's a funny story.
Yeah.
So if people are interested in hearing more and reading more about these funny stories, where can they pick up your book?
Well, the book, is available now. The publication date is April 18th, which is my birthday, but, it's available now online, anywhere you could look online, and in some bookstores. And also, I have a website, paullarosa.com. There's also a Leaving Story Avenue website. And if people, who watch this show write to me and tell me they saw me here, I'll give them a break on the book. So just you can find my contact information on the website, paullarosa.com, and just let me know you were watching BronxNet.
You heard it here first. You'll get a discounted copy of Leaving Story Avenue if you mention BronxNet.
There you go.
So, you're an you're an Emmy award-winning producer for CBS's 48 Hours.
Right.
What are you doing now?
Well, that's right. I mean, nowadays, that's exactly what I am. I'm a producer at 48 Hours Mystery. It's a CBS News show on Saturday nights, and it's all about crime and murder. But, in the 20 years I've worked at CBS News, I've covered a lot of different things, and one of them was, 9/11. And that's actually one of the Emmys that I won was for 9/11. I worked on the documentary called 9/11, which was done with these two French brothers, the Naudet brothers. The Naudet brothers, a lot of people probably saw this and remember it. The Naudet brothers were two Frenchmen working with a firehouse nearby 9/11, the closest firehouse, when the towers fell. And they were actually in one of the buildings when one of the towers fell. So they came to CBS and they gave us their footage, and we put together this documentary called 9/11, which was, Emmy award winning. It won every award back in 2000, whatever the year it was. But these days I work, on crime stories. I work on a lot of crime stories. I've written 4 true crime books based on hours that I've produced for 48 hours. It's it's a great place to work. It's a lot different than the Daily News. It's a lot more PC these days. But that's what I do now.
Thank you, Paul, and you inspire us all. It's great to
thanks.
be in the presence of an Emmy Award winner.
Thanks for having me.
We'll be right back after this. More on Open right after the break.
You're really not that talented.
You're not attractive. Too fat.
You're too short.
Too old. Why don't you just give up? Give up. Give up. Just give up.
dude, I did the most shocking thing today. It was just something I never thought I'd do.
Did your parents find out?
My mom cried.
What'd you do?
Chill out when you're stealing my things. I wouldn't have to raise my voice if you would just give it back and stop being like a criminal.
I don't have your cell phone.
Oh God, look at yourself. What are you offering?
Is this a thief's uniform? You see all these people standing around here? Why am I the one?
I'm sorry, homie. Okay? What? Don't make this a big deal. Just give it back, okay?
Did you see me?
Yes, and you know, I just know you took it.
Where are your
Look at yourself.
witnesses?
Look at
Where are your
yourself.
witnesses?
What?
Did you see me? Did you see me?
Hey, you left us in the bathroom.
Mom, I'm not gonna go to college.
What are you saying? You've got to go to college.
Well, they offered me a job and...
Son, college is much more important.
No.
Yes.
No, Mom.
Yes.
Anyways, it's my decision.
Okay, well then decide what degree you're going to get because you will go to college.
Their tomorrow depends on your words today. The Hispanic Scholarship Fund has the information you need to help your kids go to college.
Welcome back to Open. Will there ever be peace in the Middle East? Obviously, this is a very difficult question to approach. However, author Frank Romano attempts to scratch the surface with his new book, Love and Terror in the Middle East. BronxNet correspondent Arlene Makoko has more.
Will there ever be peace in the Middle East? Author of Love and Terror in the Middle East, Frank Romano, says he has the answer to that million-dollar question.
We can all work to replant olive trees. We can rebuild buildings. We can help NGOs that help rebuild buildings that were destroyed on both sides of the wall during the Intifada.
Romano has faced enormous hostility while traveling between Israel and the West Bank to lead interfaith activities, which he chronicles in his book, his mission to ease tensions and bring understanding and cooperation among Jews, Muslims, Christians, and non-believers.
We can organize groups in our own communities to kind of make the walls of prejudice and hate fall down through understanding, through working together.
Something he's devoted to doing, even here at the Bookmark Shop bookstore in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn. Ramonda Gattas adds that the conflict goes deeper than competing religious groups.
Outside countries are trying to import the idea of a civil war that's been going on there, when it's really, I think, a war for oil.
Meanwhile, Adelan Fakanji has a different take.
I come from Albania. Listen, we have Muslims, Christians, and everything, and we will live together. That ain't been a problem for us. I think anybody can accomplish that.
Iman Abid from Northern Africa has followed Frank Romano's work and feels his voice may be the only one that sets the stage for a new beginning.
It should be getting much better. I'm very hopeful that there will be some balance. It will take time, but it will get there.
His work in organizing marches and peace rallies in one of the most dangerous spots in the world inspired Muslim television producer Yusuf Ali Abdullah to come hear Romano. He says the way Israeli and Palestinian teens relate in the U.S. is so different than in the Middle East.
When they're here in New York City, they're best friends. I happen to have students, I happen to be a teacher, so I have students who here, they're friends. But once they go over into Israel, the Palestinian has to be in Hebron and the Israeli has to be in a different part, and there they can't even communicate with each other.
Love and Terror in the Middle East. It's something that Frank Romano hopes inspires millions to do their part to bring peace to this region. For BronxNet, this is Arlene Makoko.
And we had an opportunity to catch up with local artists who were given the chance to display their talents at a very unique location, the Andrew Friedman home located on the Grand Concourse. Our BronxNet cameras were on hand to show you more. Take a look.
This is a dispensary area, and there's whole packets of adult diapers and canes. My name's Manon Sloman. I'm the curator of No Longer Empty, which is an organisation which takes over abandoned or empty spaces and creates site-specific exhibitions and programming in these spaces. Not only investigate the history of the space, but also the surrounding community, and then the programming that we create is all designed to engage the community and expand the audience for contemporary art.
No, this must have meant a lot to somebody sometime. These suitcases, half-empty suitcases, you ask yourself, what was going on there? See what I mean? This has a lot of potential. It's a great building. It's architecturally beautiful, and I'm glad that something else is happening to it now.
Countless lives that had stories and depth in them, and we're here as artists who just have an opportunity to be part of the reopening of the Andrew Freeman House.
You have to place like the drawings.
Drawings here and the background color white. The whole idea of the project is also to collaborate outside of the room, so you can expect something nice, like a nice collaboration right there.
Really happy that, like, I was invited, and this is like the perfect occasion to get to know better what's all about.
I used to come by here all the time. I never knew this building, what it was. I thought it was a park, and then to be part of a group of artists chosen to work in here, it's pretty exciting.
It's great when artists can have an opportunity to become part of a conversation and kind of unearth kind of hidden histories, and it's great to educate myself and figure out how to make work about the specifics of this space.
It's been almost 30 years since the Andrew Freeman home hosted its last tenant, and today the home is now a working and living art exhibit for Bronxites and artists from abroad. For BronxNet, this is Sylvia Anglin. As always, it's been a pleasure coming into your homes. We'd like to thank our guests for joining us, and especially you, our viewers, for tuning in. You can tune in tonight for the re-cable cast of Open at 10 p.m. on Channel 67 or Verizon Fios Channel 33. And of course, you can catch a new episode on Friday at 10 a.m. with my favorite, Rena Valentine. Have an amazing week, and don't forget to keep your hearts and your minds open.
Way over the button.